Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto finds Hinata on the streets during a rainy night? Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Approaching the redhead who was so frightening everyone around them, Naruto and Hinata gave the boy a kind smile. Hi there, Naruto greeted pleasantly. The redhead finally focused his attention on the two people who were approaching him with no fear. Are you talking to me? He asked uncertainly. Naruto nodded. Who are you? I'm Naruto, and this is my friend, Hinata, Naruto replied. And you? My name is Gaara, the boy replied. Why aren't you afraid of me? You do know who I am, don't you? He asked after a moment when the two showed no sign of recognizing his name. Never heard of you, Naruto replied, somewhat blithely. Gaara looked shocked by this, which prompted Hinata to ask, why should we have heard of you? I'm the monster of the sand, Gaara said back, his voice sad. It had taken years, but after being told that he was a monster for so many years, he had eventually come to believe it. Naruto recognized that thought, that feeling, all too well. No you aren't, he said back, his voice showing no doubt whatsoever. Gaara looked up in shock. What do you mean? Of course I am. Everyone in town is afraid of me, and I've even killed people before. How could I not be the monster? He asked. I know you aren't because I'm just like you, Naruto replied. Everyone in my village ignored me and treated me like some kind of monster, but then I found out I'm not a monster, I just have one sealed inside me. I bet you do, too. Gaara pondered this. A monster sealed inside me. He thought. But then that would mean. Mother is a monster. Could it be that that isn't my mother but the monster everyone believes I am? This boy is saying he has one in him, too, maybe it's true. Turning his attention to the raven-haired girl who had only spoken once so far, he asked her, you knew of this, and you're still with him. Hinata smiled and linked her hand with Naruto's. He's my hero. I don't care what he has inside him, I'll always be at his side, she said back happily. Gaara was surprised. He's a monster, a killer, and you still love him? He asked, his voice betraying how mystified he was. Hinata nodded. But why? Hinata sighed. It doesn't matter to me what's inside him or that he's killed. I know who he is and why he does the things he does, and that's what matters to me. He would only kill if he had to defend something precious to him, and the creature inside him doesn't change the fact that he's still Naruto Uzumaki, my hero, she said quietly but confidently. So, you mean I'm not doomed to be alone forever? Gaara asked back. Hinata smiled. I'm sure you'll find someone someday, Gaara. Just don't let yourself turn to hate and anger. Be the best person you can be, and I'm sure someone will come to love you someday, she told him. Gaara pondered this for a while, eventually deciding to simply tuck it away for the time being. You said you're not from here, he said. What are you two doing here, then? It took Naruto and Hinata the better part of an hour to explain what had happened to them that brought them to the hidden sand village. They didn't tell him everything, leaving out some of the stuff about the Hyuga clan, since they didn't want to tell this boy exactly who Hinata was just yet, and not going into too much detail about their kidnapping, but other than that, they were as upfront and honest as they could be. That's when we came here, Hinata finished. We need to get some supplies for ourselves and our oxen so that we can continue our journey. Gaara thought about all he'd been told. I see, he said softly. Well, if you'll come with me, I'll help you find the supplies you need. The villagers might be afraid of me, but that hasn't stopped me from learning my way around this place. Naruto and Hinata smiled and nodded, then followed as Gaara turned and headed toward the main street of the village. Jiraiya. For the third time in the last month, Jiraiya found himself pacing back and forth in his hotel room anxiously. He had received another message from his old sensei concerning his godson and the young girl traveling with him. This one was by far the most distressing of the messages he'd been sent. Foundling's campsite found trampled. Foundling and baggage missing. Current location and condition unknown. That's all the message said, but Jiraiya was fully able to read between the lines. Naruto and his companion had been kidnapped. Oh, Minato, Kushina, what am I supposed to do? He asked aloud. I know you two would kill me if anything happened to that brat, but how can I help him now? Resuming his pacing, the Toad Sage got a determined look on his face. Okay, it's been a month now since he left. If I'm not finished with my mission and with those two in a year, I'll hand in my headband, he said to himself. That determined, he set himself to glaring at every single detail of his mission schedule. He eventually noticed that there was a single opportunity to speed things up so that they would fit the new timetable he had set for himself. It was risky, and probably stupid, but if it meant he was with those two sooner, he didn't care what he had to put on the line to do it. There, he thought to himself. If I can just stick to that, I'll be with them in a year, maybe even less. It's still not perfect, but it'll just have to do. That decision made, the man flopped onto his hotel bed and closed his eyes. It wasn't late, it was in fact early afternoon, but he was thoroughly exhausted. As he drifted towards sleep, his last thought was, please, just be safe until I can get there, Naruto. The man's dreams were haunted by the angry eyes of Naruto's parents. Hiruzen, the third Hokage, sighed deeply. He had just received a scroll stating that Naruto and Hinata had been spotted entering the hidden sand village. One of his spies there had been on duty at the village's main gate when the two used their less than plausible story to get in, which is why they had received so little trouble. It was a huge relief to know they were okay, but this other information was rather odd. The two were driving an ox cart. That didn't seem to make much sense. Where in the world would they get an ox cart? Yet the man was strangely certain the two were who he said they were. He described Hinata's eyes and Naruto's hair and whiskers so well, the Hokage had to agree, this was them. Yet, an ox cart. Where in the world did they get that? Still, it was a relief to know they were safe and apparently free. The man said it was just the two of them who entered the sand village, so obviously they had either escaped their captors or been set free. The former left the Hokage wondering how, while the latter seemed implausible, if not downright impossible. He was fairly sure the two had been captured as part of someone's attempt to profit from Hinata's Byakugan, so he found it rather unlikely that she in particular would simply be let go. And the cart was still baffling. All the same, he supposed he should just be glad they were alive and safe and that their situation had seemingly improved. Sighing again, he picked up a brush and wrote a new message to his old student. Summoning a small monkey to deliver it, he handed the creature the scroll, then went back to his paperwork, all the while trying to figure out where Naruto or Hinata would have gotten a freaking ox cart. Jiraiya. Jiraiya looked up in surprise when a poof of smoke filled his room. When it cleared, there was a monkey there with a scroll in its hand, which it handed to Jiraiya before vanishing in a second cloud of smoke. Jiraiya opened it and read, Foundling has landed in a sandy nest. Was seen with an ox cart. Shadow's desert eyes report Foundling as well. Jiraiya read the message 3 times rapidly. The first and third lines made perfect sense to him. Naruto had been seen by a spy in the sand village, who reported that Naruto was doing well. That second line, though. An ox cart. After thinking about that for a few minutes, Jiraiya came to the conclusion that had to be code for something. After all, where in the world would 2 8-year-olds get an ox cart? But if that was a code for something, what in the world was it? None of the spymaster's knowledge of codes or ciphers could make any sense out of that one. Eventually, Jiraiya had no choice but to accept that, for whatever reason, his sensei had written a single line that wasn't coded. But that brought him back to his original question. Where in the world would they get an ox cart? Naruto, what in the world have you gotten yourself into out there? He asked the wall. I just hope you know what you're doing. Please, be safe, Naruto. Please. Naruto. Naruto smiled in slight surprise as he realized that the cost of all the supplies he'd purchased hadn't even made a significant dent in his funds. He smiled as he thought of the box he'd kept in his closet all these years. It's a good thing I kept that, he thought to himself as he paid for the last few things he and Hinata were going to need. Turning to Gaara, Naruto said, "Thank you, Gaara, you've been most helpful. Now that we have our supplies, though, Hinata and I really should move on." Gaara looked stricken at this. Turning to look at the sky, the redhead said, "Nonsense. You two will both join me and my family for dinner and spend the night at my home. Tomorrow you can make your plans and decide when to leave." Naruto was about to protest, but Gaara interrupted him, saying, "I don't know how many nights you've spent in the desert, but it can be absolutely frigid sometimes. It's going to be cold tonight, and I'm sure you'd be warmer and more comfortable in one of the rooms at my home than out there on the sand." The boy didn't know if it was going to be cold or not, but he was desperate to keep Naruto and Hinata from leaving just yet. Naruto turned to Hinata. "He's got a point," he said. Hinata nodded. "Yeah, and it would feel so good to sleep in a bed again," she said. Then, blushing slightly, she added, "even if it is only for one night." Naruto chuckled. Hinata was right. It would feel good to sleep in a bed again. He hadn't thought about it consciously until that moment, but camping out for a month straight could really make you miss the finer things of home. Turning his attention back to Gaara, Naruto smiled and said, "All right, Gaara. We thank you for your hospitality, and we'll be glad to stay with you for tonight. We really should move on tomorrow, though." Gaara looked a bit depressed that they would be moving on so soon, but he wasn't going to complain about them staying for now at least. In truth, given how his father had been acting toward him of late, Gaara had to admit that the Sand Village was probably not the safest place for Naruto to be, given his burden. "Come with me," he said simply, not wanting to show how anxious he was. With that, he turned and led his two companions. Friends. He wasn't sure what they were yet, but that's exactly why he didn't want them to leave yet. Regardless, he led them to his home. Naruto was impressed by the sheer size of Gaara's home. It was obviously quite expensive, and it was the largest home by far they had seen since arriving in the Sand Village. "Nice place," he said, his voice full of awe. "I am happy you approve," Gaara said sincerely. "My siblings should be here, so we can all have dinner shortly." Hinata was taken a little aback by this. "You have siblings? You never mentioned them before," she said. "Yes," Gaara said back. "I am the youngest of three. My older brother, Kankuro, and my sister, Temari, should be here. Come in." Naruto and Hinata followed him into his home. Gaara left them to their own devices to take off their shoes and such and went on a search for his siblings. After removing their shoes, Naruto and Hinata looked around the living room where they found themselves. There was a long couch along one wall, and a large rug took up most of the floor space, while the center of the rug was dominated by a coffee table. On the table, they saw several books were laying about haphazardly. Naruto recognized one of them as the book he was reading the night he met Hinata. Hinata recognized a few as a series of which she herself was a fan. Then both of them saw an orange book laying in the midst of all the others. It wasn't familiar to either of them, but the orange cover made it very noticeable to both of them. Hinata was considering picking up the odd orange book when Gaara returned, two people who must be his siblings in tow. Temari had blonde hair tied up in 4 ponytails, a style which reminded Hinata of an odd version of the hairstyle favored by the Nara men, and she was carrying a fan with her. Kankuro was manipulating a small puppet as he walked around, making it do a rather silly dance, and was wearing a hooded outfit that made his head slightly resemble that of a cat. It was Temari who spoke first. "So, who are your visitors, Gaara?" she asked. "This is Naruto and Hinata," Gaara answered, indicating each as he said their names. "They're not from here, and they needed some help getting supplies so they could continue their journey. I invited them to join us for the night so they could more easily plan their next move." Tamari and Kankuro both looked surprised at how normal Gaara was acting. Tamari turned her focus on Hinata. Would you mind helping me in the kitchen? She asked. Hinata smiled. Not at all, I'd be glad to, she answered. The two girls disappeared into the kitchen to get dinner started. I will get your room prepared for you, Gaara said before walking up the stairs. Kankuro turned to Naruto. You do know what he is, don't you? He asked, indicating where Gaara had gone. Naruto turned a blank look on Kankuro. I mean, you do know he's a Jinchuriki, right? Naruto snorted. You mean that he has a monster inside him? Kankuro nodded furiously. Yeah, I know, he said simply. And you're not afraid of him? Kankuro asked in shock. Why in the world would I be afraid of him? Naruto asked. Then he added, after all, I have a monster in me, too. And I'm pretty sure mine is bigger. Kankuro was surprised. You're like Gaara? He asked. Well, if you mean that we both have monsters sealed within us, yeah. If you mean that we've both spent most of our lives alone, yeah. If you mean that we're both homicidal maniacs, no. And I don't think Gaara will be, either, after this, Naruto said calmly. Gaara had told him and Hinata about the many times he'd had to kill to survive over the last few years. It was a little scary, but also very sad. I did notice he seemed different, Kankuro said. Naruto sighed. Just treat him like any other sibling would want to be treated, and I really don't think you'll have to worry about him, he said. Meanwhile, Tamari had been asking Hinata much the same thing. Yeah, I know about Gaara's burden, and I know how he's had to kill so many times. He told us while we were walking around the village together earlier, Hinata said calmly. Tamari was surprised. Gaara had told them. They hadn't seen it. And you're not afraid of him? Hinata laughed. Of course not. Naruto has a monster sealed inside him, too, and I'm not afraid of him, so why would I be afraid of Gaara? Tamari was shocked now. Naruto is a Jinchuriki? She asked. Hinata nodded. She had heard the term once before, and upon hearing about Naruto's beast, she had put two and two together. How can you be so calm around him? He'd never hurt me, Hinata said. In fact, he's already killed to protect me. It was, actually really scary seeing the aftermath of what he did, but I know he did it for me, so I can't be afraid of him for doing it. Hinata finally allowed the true horror of having witnessed that sink in and shivered slightly. Tamari wrapped an arm around the smaller girl's shoulders and gave her a kind smile. I know how you feel. I still remember the first time I saw what Gaara can do. It's impressive, but scary, she said. If he can just harness that power and be convinced to use it to protect the village, I don't think any of us will ever need to fear anything again. Hinata smiled. That's exactly how I feel about Naruto. The thing is, he's already determined to be Hokage and uses his power to protect the village. I just hope one day the village will see him as I do, as our hero, she said softly. Tamari smiled. Wow, you've really got it bad for that goofy kid, huh? She said, teasingly. Hinata blushed scarlet. What do you mean? She asked, trying to feign ignorance. When Tamari just gave her a knowing look, Hinata sighed. Yeah, I do. How could I not, though? He's already saved me from becoming a prisoner of my clan and from being kidnapped, and I haven't even known him 2 months yet. He's my hero, and I'm the luckiest girl in the world just knowing him. Tamari smiled again. I'm happy for you, Hinata. I just hope Gaara finds someone like you someday. Hinata gave a slight giggle. If he follows Naruto's example, I'm sure he will. Naruto found me, after all, she said back with a happy glint in her eye. And I'm sure whoever it is, she'll be just as lucky to have Gaara as I am to have Naruto, Hinata added with a smile. Tamari sighed. I hope you're right, Hinata, she said. That said, the two girls turned their focus to making dinner for everyone. XXXXXX. The next morning, Naruto and Hinata were preparing to leave the sand village with their cart and oxen. They had enjoyed their evening with Gaara and his siblings, but they realized that they had to move on. All right, Naruto said once their team was hitched back up. Are you ready, Hinata? Hinata nodded, a blank look on her face. She was already back in her blind girl persona they had used to get into the village. They had decided to use the same cover story to get back out so as to avoid raising suspicion. Just before they could set their team onto the road that led out of the village, they got a surprise. Gaara came running up to them. Oh, hey, Gaara, Naruto said pleasantly. What's up? Take me with you, Gaara demanded. Naruto gasped in surprise. That was the absolute last thing he had expected Gaara to say. Scrambling for an excuse, Naruto glanced back and forth between Gaara and Hinata. We can't take you with us, Gaara, he said after a moment. We could start a war if we did that, especially with you being a Jinchuriki and the son of the Kazekage and all that. It's just not something we can do. Gaara considered this, then shook his head. My father has spent the last 2 years trying constantly to kill me. My own siblings are afraid of me, and the villagers all hate me. This isn't a home to me. I have to take the chance and go, now. Please, take me with you, he said, almost begging now. To the immense surprise of both Naruto and Gaara, Temari and Kankuro suddenly revealed themselves at that moment. They had been hiding nearby where neither Gaara, Naruto, nor Hinata had noticed them. Hinata briefly kicked herself for having dropped her guard, then decided she could afford to forgive herself for it this once. They were in a relatively safe place, after all. Besides, Temari and Kankuro had made it clear they had no desire to do harm to either her or Naruto. It was Temari who spoke up first. Take him with you, Naruto, she said simply. Naruto looked at her in shock. Turning to Gaara, she said, Kankuro and I love you, Gaara. We only want what's best for you, and we talked it over last night and we believe that spending some time away from the village is exactly what you need. Naruto took a deep breath. Temari, you have to understand, there are many powerful shinobi who are after Hinata and me. I'm not sure exactly what they want, but all of them want either her or me, either dead or enslaved. If Gaara comes with us, he'll be in grave danger every step of the way. That can't be better than being here, he said after thinking a moment. Temari chuckled and shook her head. It was Kankuro who spoke up this time. What Gaara said is true, for the most part. Father has been trying to kill him for some time now. He's been in grave danger every moment of every day for over 2 years. Going with you will probably put him in less danger than if he were here, actually. And besides, as long as you're in the desert, having Gaara with you will make you darn near invincible with his control over the sand. Naruto considered this carefully. They did have a point. Having someone as powerful as Gaara, and a Jinchuriki to boot, along for the ride would be a definite advantage. Especially with all the people out there who were after them, actively or otherwise, there was definite strength in numbers. Still, they could cause some kind of war between the leaf and sand if they took Gaara with them without the approval of the Kazekage. Turning to Temari, Naruto opened his mouth to say something, but Hinata beat him to it. You do have a point, but still, we can't risk the leaf and sand going to war over something like this. It just wouldn't be wise, and I really don't think either Naruto or I could live with ourselves if our villages went to war over something we did. If the Kazekage gave his approval, it would be a different story, but he hasn't done that so far as we know, she said. Naruto looked at her in surprise. It was the most he'd ever heard Hinata say all at once. Temari and Kankuro looked at one another and nodded. Kankuro came toward Naruto and Hinata and handed Naruto a small scroll. When Naruto opened it, he found it contained a letter. It read, if anyone ever comes along who is willing to take Gaara away from the village hidden in the sand, give this to them. To you, reader, I will only say this. If you cannot instill within Gaara a will to protect the people and shinobi of the sand village, please, do everyone a favor and kill him. If you are unable to do this, at least keep him away from the sand village for the rest of his life. It was signed by the Kazekage. Naruto glared at the letter, then handed it to Hinata. She read it slowly, twice over, then gave it a nasty look before pulling out a match and setting the scroll on fire. We would never do that, she said simply. The one favor we will ever do your cage is to never tell Gaara what that said. That said, though, the contents of that do change things. We will take Gaara with us for now. Naruto nodded his agreement at her words. Gaara stared at them, his eyes filled with tears, which he blinked furiously to prevent from spilling over. Thank you both so much, he said after a moment. The tears began to flow from his eyes despite his best efforts to prevent them. He climbed on the ox cart. Naruto asked, "Don't you have anything you want to bring with you, Gaara?" The redhead patted the gourd on his back. I have my sand, and there's nothing else in this village I would want to carry around with me. Hinata climbed down from the cart and pulled Temari and Kankuro aside. Don't ever forget him, she said. They nodded. We'll do our best to make him into the shinobi he should be. If at all possible, he will be back to you in about a year. At worst, we'll do our best to have him back to you in time to become a full-fledged shinobi in a few years. Since you two are probably the only ones in the village who aren't afraid of him, you'll have to be his teammates, so, please, wait for him. Temari nodded seriously, tears in her own eyes. We will, I promise you, Hinata. We'd wait for him forever if we had to. He is our brother after all, she said. Kankuro just nodded to show he agreed. Temari took a deep, slightly shaky breath, then asked, Can I say goodbye to him? Hinata smiled. We wouldn't have it any other way. She said happily. Hinata climbed back into the ox cart as Temari and Kankuro came forward and took one of Gaara's hands each. Temari gave Gaara the best smile she could despite the tears in her eyes. We'll be here when you get back, little brother, she said, her voice choked. Don't forget us. Kankuro tried to say something, couldn't at first, then cleared his throat and said, We'll miss you, Gaara. Gaara gave his siblings one of the first sincere smiles he had turned on anyone in his home for well over a year, squeezed their hands in his small ones, and said, I will come back when I am ready. Be patient, wait for me, and one day I will return. Temari and Kankuro both smiled sincerely at their brother. They were happy for him. All the same, they both had tears in their eyes. They knew they were going to miss their little brother. Temari wrapped an arm around Kankuro as they watched Naruto and Hinata aim their oxen back onto the road that led out of the sand village and said softly, This is for the best. He needs this. When he returns to us, I bet he's a totally new person. Kankuro sighed. You're right, Temari. I know you are. But still, I'm gonna miss him. Temari chuckled ruefully. Me, too, she said simply. Me, too. Gaara had climbed to the back of the ox cart and was watching as his siblings faded from his sight. Once they were gone, he made his way to the front and sat beside his two new companions. He never looked back again. Hiruzen. Hiruzen sighed as he read the newest message from his spy in the sand village. Naruto and Hinata had taken the son of the cage with them when they left that village. Even worse, the boy was the Jinchuriki of the one-tailed tanuki, Shukaku. Summoning a monkey to him, he wrote out a brief message for his student. The monkey briefly noted the name on the scroll and bowed to Hiruzen before vanishing. Burying his face in his hands, Hiruzen asked the empty room, What in the hell have you gotten yourself mixed up in, Naruto? Jiraiya. Jiraiya rolled his eyes as a monkey appeared on the floor of the bathroom in front of him. Really sensei, he thought to himself. I wonder if his bad sense of timing is a skill or just unhappy coincidence. The toad sage chuckled at this thought, then took the scroll that the small monkey was holding out to him. The monkey promptly vanished, holding its nose, once the scroll was delivered. Jiraiya chuckled ruefully. Blame sensei for that one, he thought. It's not my fault he sent you to deliver this to me now of all times. Having had his laugh, Jiraiya opened the scroll. After reading it, all thought of levity left him as the contents of the scroll sunk in. The scroll's contents, as usual, were short, vague, and in code, but Jiraiya got the gist of it easily enough, and what he got was enough to make him feel like his whole world was crashing down around him. Foundling and baggage have left Sandy Nest. Ox cart now contains an egg of sand, the scroll read. Jiraiya was still utterly baffled by that ox cart business. He was convinced that had to be a code for something, but he had absolutely no clue what it could be. He did know that whatever it was, Naruto and his baggage, as the Hokage had so affectionately dubbed Hinata, were on it. He also knew there was only one thing, egg of sand, could refer to, and that was the son of the Cage. Jiraiya had heard stories about that boy and how dangerous he was. If Naruto and Hinata had been tricked into taking him with them. Jiraiya shivered. Naruto, you had better be safe when I find you. If you aren't, I don't know what the hell I'll do, you just better be safe. He said aloud. He huffed at his inability to come up with an appropriate threat for what he'd do if Naruto wasn't okay when he got to him, then rolled his eyes at himself for vicariously threatening someone about what he would do to them if they didn't live long enough for him to get to them. Shaking his head, Jiraiya finished up his business and made his way to bed. It was getting late, and that message had taken a lot out of him. Naruto was perfectly content to allow Gaara to direct them through the desert for the next several days. He was slowly becoming familiar with certain features of the desert, but it still largely just looked like sand, and more sand in all directions to him. Gaara, though, was able to direct them where to go to find water, where to go to find shelter from the desert winds, and even where they would likely find various small creatures, like lizards and snakes, which they could use to complement their food supply. Having Gaara along was an immense help for the first week or so. After they had been traveling around the desert, seemingly aimlessly, for 9 days, Naruto slowly realized Gaara was primarily leading them eastward. Where are we going, Gaara? Naruto asked him one afternoon. Gaara smiled and answered, there's a cave I found one time when I managed to sneak out of the village. It's right on the border between the desert of wind and the forest in the land of fire. No one knows it's there but me, and it's a great place to hide out and watch the border patrols both here in the land of wind and in the land of fire. Plus, if you're careful, you can sneak across the border and hunt in the forests over there, and there's a lake not far from there, too. It's about as close to an oasis as you'll find in the desert of wind. Naruto considered this. It sounds like a good place to hole up for a while. Maybe we could even get some training in there. All right, then, Gaara. Lead on, he said after a moment. Hinata nodded. She liked the sound of it, too. It's also really cool in there, Gaara said. Even on the hottest days in the desert, the cave stays nice and cool. After a moment, the redhead chuckled and added, and even on the coldest nights, it stays warm. Naruto smiled. This cave of Gaara's was sounding more and more ideal all the time. It almost sounds like a safe house of some kind, he thought to himself. It wouldn't be long before he would be kicking himself for not giving more consideration to that thought. Jiraiya. Jiraiya snarled as he read the newest scroll he had received from his old sensei. Foundling, baggage, and egg are all lost to the sandy eyes of the fire shadow. Location and condition unknown, the scroll read. There was nothing in the world Jiraiya hated more than being kept in the dark. And this scroll didn't just keep him in the dark, it was sent as a blatant statement that he was in the dark. It almost felt like his old master was rubbing his lack of knowledge in his face. Shaking his head, Jiraiya told himself, Sensei wouldn't do that. He's just trying to keep me apprised of the situation. Still, Jiraiya hated feeling helpless and clueless, and having his godson out there, wandering around in the desert with the most dangerous child ever pretty much with him was making him feel exactly that. It wasn't a pleasant experience for the old sage. Jiraiya went over his schedule for the 1000th time. There was simply nothing he could do yet to speed things up with his mission. His chance was coming soon, but it just wasn't coming fast enough for the white-haired man. Throwing his head back and pulling on his long mane of hair, Jiraiya let out a primal scream of pure frustration. It was heard over a mile away, and those who were unlucky enough to hear it would later say it sounded like the shrieking of a demon. People a full mile away from Jiraiya claimed the sound had made the hair on the back of their necks stand on end and given them goosebumps all over their arms and legs. It was a chilling sound, to say the least. After a minute, the wordless scream faded, and Jiraiya ended up sitting on the floor, arms around his legs, rocking back and forth. The man was crying, sobbing even. He kept saying over and over in a small, pitiful voice, "Naruto, please be okay. Please, please." Naruto, Hinata, and Gaara had been living in their cave hideout for 3 weeks when they had a very near miss. On returning to the cave one evening, they found a roaring fire blazing near the entrance and obvious signs of occupancy. Naruto gestured for Hinata and Gaara to be quiet and follow him. They got as close as they could to the entrance without being seen and found a small group of leaf ninja inside. Naruto gestured for his companions to be quiet again and to wait. The blonde inched closer to the entrance until he could hear what the shinobi were saying. "Man, this patrol sucks." One of them griped. "Yeah, really," another one responded with a small sigh. "Being sent to the edge of the desert on patrol is such a pain." While the first two voices sounded fairly young, Naruto couldn't see the shinobi directly from his vantage point, the third one was a bit older, and, Naruto would have sworn, familiar somehow. "Quit bellyaching, you two." The third voice yelled in annoyance. "We could have been sent to far worse places. Hell, we could have been sent to patrol a hostile border. This duty should at least be peaceful." Naruto let out a sigh of relief and scooted back to his friends. "They're not after us," he said. Both Gaara and Hinata sighed in relief as well at this. "They're just on a patrol. Routine, probably." Hinata considered this. "Are they leaf?" she asked. Naruto nodded. "Well, at least we aren't in any real danger with them, then. Still, probably best they don't know we're here." Her companions nodded at this. She continued, "So, I guess we need to find a new campsite until they leave." Naruto snarled. He hadn't considered that. Then Gaara spoke up. "I know a spot not far from here," he said. "I doubt your patrols go quite that far into the land of wind, so we should be safe there." Naruto and Hinata nodded, and the three friends loaded up their cart and departed for the new campsite. Iruka. Unbeknownst to Naruto, the familiar voice he had heard in the cave was Iruka's. He was there on the first C-rank mission with his new genin team. They had been sent to patrol the border with the land of wind, just a matter of routine, and his team was not taking it well. After his brief outburst of annoyance, the team and Iruka had prepared themselves for bed. Iruka put a low-level barrier on the cave entrance, one that would simply alert them if anyone came in, and all four of them bedded down for the night. Hiruzen, the third Hokage, growled in frustration for what felt like the 1,000th time that day. He had been sent yet another update that amounted to nothing to report from his spies in the land of wind. Naruto, Hinata, and Gaara had not been seen once since they departed from the sand village. Penning yet another, condition unknown, style message to Jiraiya, the old man once again snarled at his own feelings of uselessness. The Toad Sage had once told the Hokage that he hated feeling useless and helpless more than anything, and Hiruzen was now totally cognizant of not only why his student felt like that, but also exactly what his student meant. Jiraiya. The chance had come. Jiraiya had to move fast, or he would miss it. He would not let that happen. He may have been an old super pervert, but he was also a hell of a ninja, and today he would prove to anyone who ever doubted him or thought he'd lost his touch that they were off their rockers. As the white-haired man ran through the hidden stone village, it became more and more apparent to him that taking this chance was the stupidest thing he'd ever done. Still, it could mean he would be able to leave this cursed place within a few days, or weeks at the most, if he could just pull this off. He had originally thought he wouldn't be able to get out of there, if his crazy stunt worked, for several months, but as the day came closer, he realized that, if this worked out just right, not a highly likely thing, to be sure he would actually be able to leave damn near immediately. On the other hand, if things went south, his cover was pretty much sure to be blown, if he even survived. Even so, he wasn't going to pass up his chance. Determination in his eyes now, Jiraiya ran faster still. I will not miss this chance, he promised himself. Naruto hated waiting. Having to camp out in the desert again was a bit of a nuisance, but having to just wait for the Leaf Shinobi to leave was driving him crazy. This is the worst, he griped. We could train, Gaara said with a small smile. It would help pass the time at least. That is true, Naruto said. Any suggestions? Hinata spoke up then. I could help you too with chakra control, she said. Gaara looked at her, surprised he would be included in her idea. What? She asked. Gaara sighed. I've never been included like that, he said back. Hinata smiled softly, and Gaara continued, and I don't know what you mean by that, either. Hinata shook her head in frustration. You must really be like Naruto. I've seen teachers flat out telling him not to worry about chakra control. I guess they didn't even tell you what it is. Gaara listened intently as Hinata explained what chakra is and how to control it so that there is little to no waste when various jutsu and such are performed. That definitely sounds like something I could use, Naruto said with a grin. Come on, you two, let's go. With that, the three of them ran out into the desert so they could practice a bit away from their campsite. It wouldn't do to wreck their home, after all. Naruto and Gaara faced one another, with Hinata in between them. Hinata took a deep breath, made a hand sign, and concentrated chakra in her eyes. Byakugan, she said softly, activating her clan's dojutsu as she did. The veins around her eyes bulged and her violet eyes seemed to get a bit wider as her vision expanded to near 360-degree coverage of the area. She was also able to see the chakra networks of her two companions. Turning to Naruto first, she said simply, channel your chakra, concentrate it at the bottoms of your feet. To Gaara, she added, you do the same. Naruto made a hand sign. Awkwardly, Gaara copied the gesture, and both of them tried to concentrate their chakra. Neither of them had much luck at it at first, but, with Hinata's guidance, they were able to manage a fairly steady stream of chakra in their feet. The blue-haired girl looked around them and saw an outcropping of rock that was more or less straight vertical not far from them. She pointed at it and said, now, using your chakra, you should be able to stick to that and walk up it. Gaara grinned. That sounded like fun, if a little odd. He walked toward it and placed a foot on the rock wall. He felt his foot stick to the surface and, when he stepped upward, his weight was supported by the chakra on his foot. He easily walked up the wall a few paces. Then, Naruto yelled out, that's awesome, and charged up the wall. Naruto got a few paces, then slipped and fell. Naruto's yell, meanwhile, distracted Gaara, and the resulting disturbance in his chakra made the redhead slip and fall as well. The two landed in a tangled pile of arms and legs at the base of the rock wall. Hinata giggled at the two of them. See, it's not as easy as it seems, is it? Gaara grumbled. I only took my focus off it for a second, and I was on the ground. Naruto asked, can you do this, Hinata? Hinata nodded. Show us, Naruto demanded in the way only he could. Hinata raised an eyebrow at him. If we see you do it, maybe we can figure out where we went wrong. Hinata smiled. Naruto is such a goof sometimes, but when it comes to training, he's always serious, she thought to herself. Channeling chakra to the bottoms of her feet, Hinata slowly, sedately, with her eyes narrowed in focus, walked up the rock wall. It wasn't easy, even for her, but she had been practicing this since she was 3. It was at least doable for her by now. Did that help? She asked, looking at the two boys on the ground. They appeared to be upside down to her, which amused her so much she started giggling at them, which took her focus off her feet, and she slipped off the rock, crashing down on top of the two boys, resulting in yet another tangle of arms and legs. After disentangling themselves, Naruto looked at Hinata. I thought you could do this, he teased her. I can, Hinata said back. But even for me, it's not exactly easy, and if you lose focus for even a moment, you fall. Pushing Naruto playfully, she added, besides, it's your fault I fell. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this. What? I didn't do anything. Hinata giggled. I know, but you two looked so funny it made me lose focus, she said, shoving Naruto back. Gaara was standing there watching them, feeling a bit uncomfortable, when Naruto suddenly turned to him. It must have been your red hair, Naruto said, jokingly. It was too bright for her eyes. He gave Gaara a wink. Gaara blinked, not sure how to respond to this. Hinata came to his rescue, though. If anything was too bright, it was your crazy blonde spikes, she told Naruto. Hinata gave Gaara a small smile, and Gaara cautiously returned it. Naruto pouted. All right, let's try this again, Gaara, Naruto said. I'm getting up this rock before you do. Gaara was surprised when he felt a burning desire in him to beat Naruto up that wall. Is this what it means to have a friend? He thought to himself. Or, a rival. Naruto smiled and ran at the wall. Gaara was a bit more methodical about it, but he made another attempt to go up the wall as well. Hinata smiled. I'm glad these two are getting along, she thought to herself. Activating her Byakugan again, she watched their progress. XXXXXX. After training for several hours, Naruto and Gaara both looked like something the cat dragged in, and they were both exhausted. Come on, you two, Hinata said. Let's get back to camp. I'd say you two are doing really well for your first day. Naruto and Gaara smiled at one another. Naruto patted Gaara on the shoulder. Yeah, we're just that awesome. Naruto said. Gaara wasn't sure what to do with himself. As they made their way back to their campsite, he was thinking about something that had been bothering him for a while now. So, why are you two so accepting of me? He asked. Naruto chuckled. Well, for one thing, I already know if you tried to go after Hinata, I would end you. It's happened once before, which is how we got that card, so I know I can and will do it. For another, you're just like me, he said back seriously. Gaara had gotten chills at Naruto's comment about killing him, but he knew without a second's doubt that Naruto could do it if he needed to. Something about how Naruto said it, Gaara just knew not to mess with these two. Hinata rested a hand on Naruto's shoulder. What he means, Gaara, is we trust you. There's nothing for us to fear from you, and we know it, so we trust you. We just hope you trust us, too, she said. Gaara smiled slightly. I do trust you, he said back. I'm just not used to be accepted. No one in the village ever did. They all wanted me to go away, or die. Naruto could see Gaara was feeling down, and he knew the feeling. I felt that way for a long time, too, Gaara, he said. Gaara looked up in surprise. No one wanted me around, they just looked at me with this cold look in their eyes. I was so alone, it was awful. Gaara nodded as Naruto spoke of this. That was exactly how he felt. Naruto continued, but then I found people who did accept me. Iruka-sensei back home, the Hokage, and then Hinata here. So, why did you leave? Gaara asked. He had been wondering this, but hadn't had the courage to ask until now. Hinata looked at Naruto, then turned away and looked down. Hinata's father threw her out, Naruto said. Her family disowned her. They were going to seal her. I couldn't let them do that, so, we left. Oh, I see, Gaara said. So you left your village to protect your friend. Naruto nodded. Gaara considered this for a moment, then asked, would you say you value her more than your village? Naruto didn't need to think about that. You mean do I value one of the only people to ever accept me over a village full of morons who treated me like I was worthless? Hell, yes, I do. Hinata, hearing Naruto put it so forcefully that he cared more for her than the village, blushed furiously. And I would do anything, even destroy the village if I had to make sure Hinata was happy, Naruto added, giving her a sincere smile. Hinata's blush intensified. It was all she could do to not faint. Gaara noticed this, as did Naruto, but neither one said anything. Naruto was used to Hinata blushing, and Gaara didn't have the foggiest idea what it could mean. As they fell into a silence because of this, they arrived back at their campsite. Hinata busied herself with making dinner for the three of them and did her best not to think about what Naruto had said. She knew, in the back of her mind, that he was just saying she was a good friend, but Hinata had started to develop a bit of a crush on the blonde. It was far from real love, but she knew it was heading there. It had started when he saved her from the bullies, then developed more when he saved her from being sealed. Now, out here in the desert, Hinata had come to rely on him and his strength, especially after he saved her yet again from those kidnappers. Naruto was watching Hinata. He spent a lot of time doing that, lately. Not like he was staring at her or anything, he was guarding her, really. He had realized after spending a month on the road with her that Hinata was actually really cute. He didn't know if he had feelings for her or not, but he knew she was important to him. Gaara was watching both of them. He was still unsure what to make of all this, but he was starting to think of these two as friends. It was a weird feeling. He had people who cared about him, and he cared about them. His inner voice was still crying out for blood, but being around these two made it way easier to ignore. If that was the case, he guessed at least it was a good thing. Jiraiya. Jiraiya was feeling triumphant. He had done it. His chance had come, he had taken it, and now he was on his way to the land of wind. Man, it's about time something worked out for me, he thought to himself. Pulling out a scroll, the toad sage summoned a small toad and handed it the scroll. Deliver this to sensei for me, please, he said to the toad, who nodded, took the scroll, and vanished. The scroll contained a captured shinobi and all the files the Hokage would need to finalize Jiraiya's mission. Looking ahead of him, he could see, on the horizon, the desert that made up the majority of the land of wind. All right, Naruto. I'll be there soon. You better be okay when I get there, he said aloud. To himself, he thought, and I can finally find out what that damn ox cart is. Jiraiya sighed as he looked around the desert. The sand was endless. He knew there was only one way he would ever likely be able to find the three kids in this mess. Sitting down, he crossed his legs and entered a meditative state and closed his eyes. After a moment, his nose became far more bulbous, and the red marks on his cheeks extended as his cheeks became more swollen. When he opened his eyes, they had taken on the appearance of a frog's eyes. His senses exploded, and, sure enough, he found 3 chakra signatures hidden away in a nearby cave. There they are, he thought to himself. With his hugely boosted power from Sage Mode, Jiraiya leapt across the desert and found himself outside the cave within moments. His entrance was quite dramatic, complete with huge stomp landing and a shock wave that wasn't entirely imaginary. Naruto, Hinata, and Gaara jumped when they heard the sound from outside. What in the world was that? Naruto said, recovering first. Gaara looked to his friends in concern. Someone's out there, he said. I felt the sand compact where, whoever it is landed. That was a hell of a landing, whoever it is. Hinata took a breath to calm her nerves. We should see who it is, she said. Byakugan. As her bloodline activated, Hinata saw a huge man with way too much chakra. Even her 2 friends didn't have that much chakra in them, even when their tailed beasts were taken into consideration. There was something off about his chakra, too. Most chakra was blue, and Naruto and Gaara both had some red in theirs because of their beasts, but this was green. It reminded Hinata of the wind, earth, and water, all at once somehow. Deactivating her Byakugan, Hinata said, there's someone out there, all right. And he has more chakra than I've ever seen in a person. Even you two don't have that much. Naruto gasped. Even we don't. That's insane. Who in the world could have that much chakra? Is it another Jinchuriki? Hinata shook her head. Most chakra is blue, and you two's beast's chakra is red. This is green. I've never seen that before, she said. It's like looking at wind, water, and the earth all at once. Gaara thought about this a moment, then said, could it be sage chakra? Hinata looked at him in confusion. Sage chakra? She asked. What's that? Gaara shrugged. I'm not totally sure, he said. I just remember hearing about it one time. My father was having a meeting with someone, and they said they were trying to master sage jutsu, but they couldn't get sage chakra under control. Hinata considered this, then said, it would make sense, I guess. I've never seen chakra this potent before. Even your tailed beasts pale in comparison to this. Before they could respond, a huge man with white hair all the way down his back, swollen face with red stripes going down from his eyes, a bulbous, warty nose, and a headband that said, oil, on it came into their cave. Yes, he said loudly. It is indeed sage chakra that I have in me. For it is I, the famous hermit of Mount Myoboku, the immortal spirit, the Toad Mountain Sage. It is I, Jiraiya. As he said this, he was whipping his hair around himself and ended in a dramatic pose. Hinata giggled at the old man's antics. Jiraiya, huh, she said. I think I've heard that name before. Jiraiya's face took on a look of pure unadulterated perverted joy. I'm already famous, and my book isn't even out in paperback yet. He thought. Hinata said after a moment, you're the author of Make Out Paradise, aren't you? Jiraiya grinned. Yes I am. I'm so glad a cute girl like you has heard of me. Naruto snarled. Hey, pervy sage. Don't even think about trying anything with her. Jiraiya snarled at the nickname, but he knew he really couldn't deny it. Before he could say anything, Gaara spoke up. I believe you are one of the legendary Sannin of the Hidden Leaf, are you not? Naruto and Hinata were immediately on their guard. We're not going back to the Hidden Leaf, Naruto said. I don't care if you are one of the Sannin, I'll take you down if you try to take us back there. Jiraiya realized in an instant he was going to have to take this seriously. I have no intention of taking you back there, he said. Well, not until you want to go there, anyway. Naruto snarled. The Hyuga were going to seal Hinata, he said. And the Hokage couldn't stop them. We're never going to go back there and let her be sealed. Jiraiya looked at the two in surprise. He hadn't been told that little detail. It certainly added an interesting wrinkle to things. I get it, kid, he said. I won't force you to go anywhere you don't want to. I'm here to make sure you are all right, and to help you. Naruto dropped his guard a little. He hadn't been expecting that reaction. You are? He asked. Jiraiya nodded. And what about Hinata and Gaara? Jiraiya smiled. This was just like Nagato, Yahiko, and Konan. I can train all three of you, he said after a moment. Hinata dropped her guard as well, although not completely. You can train us. How? She asked. Jiraiya smiled a bit wider. Well, for one thing, I'm a seal master, and I can probably help both Naruto and Gaara control the other chakra they have inside them. As for you, Hinata, you have the Byakugan, and you've been learning the gentle fist, right? Hinata nodded. I know some tricks that are part of that style. I can teach them to you. You mean you can help us learn to control the chakra of our tailed beasts? Naruto asked. Jiraiya jumped. Well, yes. How did you know about that? He asked. Hinata giggled. Naruto knows about it because he used the fox's chakra to save us before we got all the way out here. That's how we got the ox cart, she said. Jiraiya gasped. Will I finally find out what that really is? He thought. Aloud, he said, the ox cart, right. Where is it, anyway? Hinata pointed a bit deeper into the cave. It's back there. We keep all our stuff in there so we can move at a moment's notice if we ever have to, she said. Jiraiya asked, can I take a look? Hinata looked at the boys. They nodded after a moment. Sure, she said. We can give you the grand tour, if you like. Jiraiya smiled. Lead on, then, he said. The four made their way deeper into the cave. To Jiraiya's shock, the first thing he saw was 2 oxen. Sure enough, In the corner of the cavern they had come into, there was a cart sitting there. Wait, it's really a freaking ox cart. He yelled. What do you mean? Naruto asked. Jiraiya sighed. The Hokage has been keeping me informed on you three and your journey out here. He said you had an ox cart, and I figured it had to be code for something. I never thought you would actually have an ox cart. How in the hell did you get that? He asked, his shock showing through in his voice. Naruto sighed. He told Jiraiya the story of Hinata and him being kidnapped by some men who wanted to sell Hinata for her eyes and how he had killed them using the fox's chakra. Hinata came to Naruto as he talked and wrapped an arm around him. It was her silent way of showing her support. Naruto smiled at her and wrapped an arm around her in return. Jiraiya smiled at the moment. It was just too cute for words. He also took in everything Naruto was saying. I'm so glad you're okay, he said sincerely. I'm sorry I wasn't here for you sooner. I wanted to be, but I couldn't. Naruto waved him off. We've been doing just fine on our own. Jiraiya nodded. He could see just how true that was. And besides, if we hadn't been on our own, we never would have gotten so close, and I wouldn't trade that for anything, Naruto added, squeezing Hinata close to him. Jiraiya chuckled. There was hope for the kid yet. Turning his attention to Hinata, he asked, and what about you? What do you see in this knucklehead? Hinata blushed. He saved me. I was all alone, my family had thrown me out, and Naruto was there for me. He let me stay with him, and then, when my family wanted to seal me, he ran with me so that they couldn't. She blushed a deeper red. And he's always been my inspiration. Ever since that day, she trailed off. She hadn't even told Naruto about that yet, so she really didn't want to tell Jiraiya about it. Naruto picked up on her comment, but he filed it away for the moment. He would talk to Hinata about that later. Turning to Jiraiya, Naruto said, I'll protect Hinata, no matter what. She means the world to me, and I would take on the world to protect her. I don't care what happens to me or the rest of the world, so long as she's with me, I'll be fine. Hinata blushed at Naruto's words. She had just stopped blushing from what she said, and he had to go and say something like that. To everyone's surprise, it was Gaara who spoke up next. These two were my first friends, he said. I will never forget them, and I will do anything I can to help them. Jiraiya smiled. You know, that right there is the absolute core of Will of Fire. I'm glad to see you three all have it, he told them sincerely. Naruto snorted. Will of Fire, huh? I thought that was all about protecting the village and everyone there with your life if you have to. Jiraiya shook his head. Not really. The Will of Fire is all about protecting the people who are precious to you with your life. The village is secondary to that. Hinata smiled. Well, I guess that means all I have to do is protect Naruto, she said. Naruto squeezed Hinata to him. And all I have to do is protect Hinata, he said with a smile. Jiraiya felt his heart squeeze within him. They really don't have anyone but each other, do they? He asked himself. Aloud, he said, that's a great goal, you two. And you're going to need a lot of training to be able to do it. As it happens, I don't have any more missions for a while, so I can dedicate all my time to training you three. What's a while? Naruto asked. Jiraiya chuckled. Very perceptive, Naruto. I don't have any missions for the next 2 years. That's plenty of time to train you three. Gaara smiled. It would be an honor to be trained by one of the Sannin, he said. Naruto laughed. Well, I don't know about that. Pervy Sage here isn't that special, he said. Jiraiya growled at that nickname having stuck already. Then again, it would be nice to have someone actually training us. And if you're really one of the Sannin, you must be a super awesome ninja under all that perverted crap, so, sure, we'll train with you. Hinata giggled at Naruto's antics. Indeed, Jiraiya, it would be an honor to learn from you. If you can really help me get better at the gentle fist, your help would be much appreciated, she said politely. Jiraiya grinned and flashed the three kids a thumbs up. Excellent, he said. Your training starts now. Get ready for the hardest training of your lives. With that, the three lonely children began the most extensive training regimen ever devised in the elemental nations. They would spend the next 2 years being trained into the ground by Jiraiya, and they would emerge far stronger than when they started. Naruto took a deep breath as he looked up at the walls of the Hidden Leaf village. He and Hinata hadn't seen their old home in 3 years, and they were still rather nervous about returning to it. Turning to Jiraiya, who was walking behind them, Naruto voiced the concern both of them had. Are you sure Hinata's family won't cause us any trouble? He asked. Jiraiya smiled at his godson. It'll be fine, Naruto, I promise, he said back. The Hyuga have officially removed Hinata as a member of their clan, so they can't do anything to her, no matter how much some of them might want to. And Hinata, if you're wondering, it was your father's doing. He told the Hokage he was doing it to protect you from the clan. Hinata nodded. I figured as much, she said. Jiraiya had long since told her the truth about why Hiashi made her leave that fateful night, 3 years ago now. It didn't make a lot of sense to her, but she understood that, underneath his rocky facade, her father actually loved her. Sighing, she said, it's still scary to think of being in the same place as them. I would much rather not be sealed, especially after all this. Jiraiya laughed. Don't worry. Your father has made sure that can't happen. If they try it now, they'll be defying the Hokage, and they know better than to do that. Naruto gave a rare smile to Hinata. Reaching out, he took her hand in his softly. Come on, it'll be fine. We can trust the pervy sage, he said. Jiraiya fumed at the nickname, but he had to admit, it worked. Hinata smiled, and the three walked through the gates of the village, Naruto still holding Hinata's hand. So, you said the academy is having their final exams today, right? Naruto asked as they walked down the main street. Jiraiya chuckled. That kid had a one-track mind sometimes. Yes, they are. I'm going to take you two there right now, actually, so you can get in there. The instructors should know you're coming. The Hokage said you could take the exam. As long as you pass, you won't have to worry about dealing with classes, he told the blonde. Naruto and Hinata both got determined looks on their faces at this pronouncement. While you two are doing that, I'm going to go report to the Hokage. Naruto turned back. We'll see you after the exams, right? He asked. Jiraiya nodded. I'll meet you outside the academy once you're done. If for some reason I can't get there, you two should head to the Hokage's office. I'll meet up with you along the way somewhere. Naruto sighed again. It makes me really nervous to not have you backing us up, he said after a moment. I guess we'll be okay, though. It's not like anything will happen in the academy. Hinata thought for a moment that something could happen. Her cousin would likely be there, after all, but she kept this thought to herself for the moment. Jiraiya wasn't sure of Naruto's assessment, either, but he kept this quiet as well. There was no point in upsetting the blonde unnecessarily. While they were talking, the three travelers had arrived at the entrance gate to the academy. Well, go on, you two, Jiraiya said. I'll see you soon. That said, he walked off toward the Hokage tower. Naruto took a deep breath, gave Hinata a small smile to comfort her a bit. He knew her nerves were as shot as his, and, giving her hand a small squeeze, made his way toward the academy building, Hinata slowly following. Once the two arrived in the classroom where Jiraiya had told them to go, they found a group of prospective genin waiting for their own exams. Among the crowd were three who stood out. There was Neji, whom Hinata recognized instantly, a boy with a preposterous bowl cut, and a girl with 2 buns in her hair. Naruto and Hinata blinked, then made their way to 2 empty seats to wait their turns. Before they could reach the seats, however, Neji intercepted them. What are you two doing here? He asked in an annoyed monotone. Failures like you shouldn't be here, especially not today. His comment was mostly directed at Hinata, but, since he knew Naruto had taken Hinata out of the village, he lumped Naruto in with her. In his mind, they were both failures. Naruto squeezed Hinata's hand lightly, then vanished. In less than a second, he had closed the gap between him and Neji found himself, to his shock, with a kunai against his throat before he could even think. It took Neji a full second to process what had just happened. Naruto ground out between clenched teeth, "You really shouldn't underestimate us." Neji was about to ask why Naruto said us instead of me, but then he realized Hinata was gone too. She was behind Neji, and she had a finger mere centimeters from Neji's spine. Neji realized, if the two hadn't stopped, he would either have a slashed throat or a severed spine, possibly both. Hinata said from behind him, "I know I was a failure when you last saw me, brother, but I'm not one now." Her voice was sweet, as Neji remembered it, but it was now filled with steel as well. Neji blinked. When he reopened his eyes, he found himself released of the two. They were back in front of him, hands clasped again. It took him a moment to reassure himself he hadn't just experienced a bizarre genjutsu. "I suppose I'll have to rethink some things," he thought to himself. Aloud, to the two, he said, "I see. I won't bother you further." Naruto and Hinata chuckled at Neji's reaction, then sat down in the seats they had been going toward when Neji intercepted them. Within a few minutes, the two were yawning in boredom as they watched as one student after another went to take their exams. Eventually, Hinata's name was called. Standing up, Hinata said, "See you in a minute." She made her way to the exam room. While Hinata was gone, the bun-haired girl and the boy with the bowl cut approached Naruto. "We saw what you did to Neji," the girl said. Naruto was immediately on his guard. "Yeah," he said. The boy responded. "Indeed. It was quite the youthful performance," he said enthusiastically. Naruto had no idea what that meant, and the look on his face clearly showed it. The girl spoke up. "What Lee here means is, we were both quite impressed with how you made Neji look like a fool," she said with a smile. "I'm Tenten, by the way." Naruto gave a hesitant smile. "I'm Naruto," he said back. Lee, as the bull-haired boy was apparently called, said, "I am Rock Lee. And as you have so easily bested my old rival, Neji, you are hereby dubbed my new eternal rival." As he spoke, he smiled widely, and Naruto would have sworn he saw the light ping off the boy's teeth. He blinked and shook his head, convinced that had to have been an illusion of some sort. Tenten gave Naruto a look of sympathy. "It was nice meeting you, Naruto," she said simply. "I hope we'll see you again in the future." Naruto nodded to her. Then Lee spoke up. "Yes, it was very nice to meet you, Naruto. And I will see you again, my rival," he said with another grin. Naruto chuckled a bit at the boy's antics. "All right, but don't think you'll beat me," he said. "I can't let Hinata see me fail." Tenten and Lee left after this. Naruto chuckled. It's nice to see the village hasn't changed much, he thought to himself. After another few minutes, Naruto watched as Lee and Tenten left for their own exams. Then, eventually, Naruto's own turn came up. Making his way to the exam room, Naruto was surprised to find Iruka Yumino waiting for him. "Iruka, what are you doing here?" he asked. He hadn't known the instructor well enough prior to leaving to call him sensei, but he was aware of the man at least. Iruka smiled at Naruto. "I heard you and Hinata were coming back today," he said. "I wanted to be here to give you your test personally." Naruto shrugged. That made almost no sense to him, but he decided not to think too much about it. "So, what do you need me to do?" he asked. Iruka smiled. "If you can perform a substitution, transform, and create 3 clones, you pass," he said. Naruto rolled his eyes. Those were such low standards, it was frankly ridiculous. He created 3 shadow clones, substituted with one of them, then, after dispelling them, transformed into Iruka. "Good enough?" he asked. Iruka chuckled at hearing his own voice. "Yep. That's perfectly fine, Naruto," he said back. Handing Naruto a headband, he added, "Be here tomorrow morning at 8 for team assignments." Naruto took the headband and put it on immediately. "I'll be there," he said back, then turned and left the room. He didn't see Iruka disappear in a cloud of smoke to reveal Mizuki. Mizuki was snarling. That freaking demon wasn't supposed to pass. He thought to himself. I suppose I'll just have to find some other way to get the scroll for Lord Orochimaru. Naruto, oblivious to the threat he had just walked out on, made his way out of the academy building. Finding Hinata waiting for him, he walked up to her and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Hinata was wearing her new headband like a necklace. Well, that's over with, Naruto said. Hinata giggled and wrapped an arm around Naruto's waist. Yes, it is, she said back. Let's go find Jiraiya-sensei. Naruto nodded, and the two left the academy. While they made their way to the Hokage's office, Jiraiya was finishing up his report on the two. After 3 years of training with me, I'm fairly certain they'll pass the exams with no trouble whatsoever, Jiraiya finished. The Hokage sighed. I just hope you haven't been training them in your research, he said. Jiraiya looked offended. Oh come on, you know it's possible, don't even try to deny it. Jiraiya shrugged. Well, sure, I suppose it's possible. But no, I didn't train them in that. I think Hinata would have killed me if I had tried, he said seriously. Mostly, I trained them up in their basic jutsu. I made sure Hinata could make clones, which she can just fine, and I taught Naruto shadow clones when it became apparent the basic clone would always be beyond him. Anyway, I imagine they're done with their exams by now. They'll probably be here soon. The Hokage chuckled. Yes, I imagine they are. When you see them, you can let them know they'll be placed on a team together. I don't think it would do anyone any good to separate them just now. No, it wouldn't, Jiraiya agreed. One last thing before I go, where do you intend for them to live? Hiruzen sighed. Well, Hinata is technically not a Hyuga anymore, so she can't go there. Naruto's old apartment got re-rented a long time ago, so that's out. I guess they can either get a new apartment, or you could let them stay at your old home, Jiraiya. Jiraiya thought about that, then nodded. I guess that would work. I assume I won't be in the village too much for the next year or so I could let them stay there while I'm gone, he said. Hiruzen nodded. That seems to be the best solution. Once they get some money from missions and such, they can get their own place if they want to, he said. Jiraiya nodded to this, then left the office. Upon exiting the Hokage Tower, Jiraiya turned and immediately found himself looking at his two students. Hey, you two, he called. Perfect timing. Naruto and Hinata casually walked up to their sensei. How did the Hokage take it? Naruto asked. Jiraiya chuckled. He's fine. He said you two will be on a team together, so you don't have to worry about that. He also said I should let you two stay at my home for the moment. If you want to get your own place after you get some money, you can, but my place is your best bet for now. Naruto chuckled. He pulled out the box he had taken from his old apartment all those years ago. To Hinata, he said, I told you I wasn't leaving without this. Now you'll see why. He opened the box. Sitting in the box was a huge stack of papers. Jiraiya looked at the box in shock. Is that what I think it is? He asked. Naruto chuckled at the older man's reaction. It was left to me by my father, he said. The Hokage wouldn't tell me who my dad was, but he said this was his legacy to me. Digging through the box, Naruto eventually found what he wanted. Handing it to Jiraiya, he said, I think we'll do just fine with this. Jiraiya stared at the paper in his hand in shock. It was a deed. This is the deed to the old Uzumaki home, he said. Naruto nodded. Jiraiya handed it back, his face betraying his utter shock. Well, I guess it makes sense it would belong to you, Naruto. I'm just surprised they would tell you that. Naruto chuckled. The Hokage made me promise not to use anything in the box except in dire circumstances. I think this qualifies, he said. Jiraiya smiled. He had to admit the kid had a point. Yeah, this qualifies as dire, all right, he said. All right, you two can go on over there and get yourselves settled. I have some things to get done tonight, but I'll catch up with you tomorrow. Good luck with your new teammate. He gave the two a wave and departed. Hinata smiled at Naruto once they were alone. Is that the only thing in there you didn't want to leave behind? She asked. Naruto shook his head. I figured. It's fine, you don't have to show me everything in there. I trust you. Naruto chuckled. Thanks, Hinata, he said. Come on, let's go. Hinata nodded, and the two turned their feet toward Naruto's ancestral home. Neither one had any idea what they would find when they got there, but they knew the only important thing they would find there. It was the one thing they had been missing for the past 3 years, and they were ready to have it back. It was home.